So they could come back and say, blame it on Syrians and blast Damascus. Mm-hmm. And that would have brought Isaiah 17 all into play. Mm-hmm. They wanted to go that route back then. The Lord told me to post that code. I posted it. They didn't do the nuking, but they came back later, 6 months later, with all these hurricanes from Florida.
Yeah.
So, you're trading one for the other. But if that bombing had taken place, just think of the millions that would have died compared to the thousands that suffered because of the hurricanes.
Okay. All right, Sherry, we have an email here. Question to you. It says, ask Sherry what she thinks of David Booth and his vision and his meeting with Sister Lucia, the last survivor of the Fatima sightings back in the 30s.
I've probably heard about it, but I'm not real familiar with.
Okay.
You would have to tell me what it is.
Okay.
All
right. We'll go on. That's all right. Who knows? Somebody may ask you, what's the square root of pi? And, I don't know.
Yeah,
But here you go. Here's another one for you. It says, Daniel, I am a devout Catholic and strongly believe that Sherry has spoken to the Lord and does his will by trying to protect others. May she be blessed for her courageous work. I also think Sherry should speak at the Roswell conferences this summer. So there you go. It says, give you a big hug and thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you.
So it's not all bad. There you go. I tell you what, there's always somebody out there as a naysayer, but they just really want to get everybody back in the plantation, lest you escape the plantation and the line.
Yeah, you know what? Everybody is so focused on the fact that we don't have to worry about any of this stuff because it's the European Union that makes up the 10 crowns of the beast and all this. And you know what? We look at Daniel chapter 2, the legs of iron and the toes of iron mixed with miry clay, because iron is another term used for aliens, for fallen angels. And the last nation that the Lord prophesied in that beast through Daniel was that it would be an alien nation.
Sherry, do you have another scripture of any kind that relates to the Bible and aliens?
You can look at Daniel chapter 2, his interpretation of his dream in verse 40 and 43. You can look at Genesis 6:1. You can look at Jude. Mm-hmm. There's only one chapter in Jude. Yeah. It talks about how the fallen angels had been imprisoned, and what they did was they did imprison the first 200 that led the rebellion.
Yeah.
But the others, as I read in Genesis chapter 6, is that they were here before the flood and after. They continued to fall. And Enoch talks about the fallen angels, and he'll tell you the difference between fallen angels and demons and evil spirits.
Yeah.
If people want to read Enoch and really get a handle on who these fallen angels were, because the book of Genesis doesn't cover the angelic rebellion as much as Enoch does.
Now, who has the book of Enoch?
Well, I have it on my website. They can read it right off my website at SherryShriner.com.
Where did that come from, and why is it not included in today's Bible?
Well, exactly. Why isn't it included? Because there's plenty of references in the KJV about Enoch. We all know that he was a great prophet of the Lord. He never saw death. He was whisked away in a chariot. Mm-hmm. And why wasn't his book included? What was the church trying to hide? Was the church already planning back then to hide this agenda from last days prophecies from the church so they wouldn't know what was coming? They would have their heads under the sand looking towards Europe instead of looking at the alien nation that was going to rise out of the last great nation. And what's the great nation now? It's America.
Have you ever heard the explanation of the mundane prophets who just prophesy really safe stuff? Have you ever heard where they would say, where did the giants come from? Where did Goliath and his clan and those cities come from? Have you ever heard them address that?
Well, no, I haven't. There's so many prophets are almost a dime a dozen today, Daniel. And if you look at half of the prophecies that they're prophesying, I know there's a big push and a big kick coming out of the whole Jesuit thing, where they've got this army of Joel building in the last days. Now that's Knight of Malta influenced, because Satan's getting ready to build his army. He wants to mock and mimic everything the Lord's doing. And so at the same time the Lord will have his 144,000 army here, Satan's going to have his Joel's army here. So, there's a lot of prophets. What you have to do is just pray to the Lord and ask, seek Him, which ones to listen to.
Sherry, we had a caller want to ask you a question. Have you ever seen lights going across the sky and then stop?
Have I seen lights?
Yeah.
Sure, I see lights.
And is that UFO activity, or is that just planes that have some ability to reverse thrust and just hang there?
You mean just stop and reverse direction or hover for a while?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are UFOs. I've seen so many UFOs that will flash the red and white lights and just look like regular planes, and you'll be convinced they're just planes.
Yeah.
But then they'll just do something totally insane. They'll stop to reverse directions. They'll hover for a while.
Yeah.
And planes just don't do that. And we're going to see a lot more UFO activity in the skies because I believe the war of Revelation 12 is taking place.
Well, let's just crazy this thing up a little bit. Did aliens influence the outcome of the election?
Well, that was government mind control, a lot of it, and, rigged voting booths. I don't really think the aliens care who wins because they control either side.
Whoa.
So all we're looking at is a human factions fighting over who gets the bragging rights of being in power when Satan comes.
Yeah. Yeah. And when do you think Satan will come, or is he here now?
I believe that he's coming. Well, if I say real soon or anything like that, people are going to, I can't give you an exact time, but I can tell you the times we're in, and that is creating the conditions for his arrival. We are, with George Bush as president or with John Kerry, it didn't matter because both of them were skull and bones, secret societies, sold out to Lucifer, already taken oaths of loyalty to Lucifer. It didn't matter which one was president. They were both sold out to Lucifer. Our nation is not a nation under God. We have one of the largest, most powerful satanic nations to ever arise in the history of this earth. If you look at Revelation 17 and 18, you'll read America.
Mm-hmm. Well, I often wonder, where did God change his mind about having occultic activity in a nation? Where did he ever approve of that? And this nation is full of it.
Where did he approve of occult?
God never, as far as I read or know, God never changed his mind about when a nation allows demonic activity or it allows other religions that are antichrist or idol worship or any such thing, which this land is full of. As far as I know, he never changed his mind about that.
Yeah, he always destroys them.
Yeah.
And that's what he's going to do to America, and our destruction is coming.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a person, and they said, I don't read the book of Revelation because it's just, it makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, well, if you read Revelation chapter 9, verse 1 through 12, you'll read about the alien invasion, a UFO invasion to Earth, when they come up out of the abyss, and this is not hell, this is space. Abyss is another term for space. If you read about Abaddon and Apollyon, a destroyer, this is the leader coming out of the abyss, out of space. The Antichrist, Satan himself, will come out of the abyss, which is space. They're going to come out of space. And so we're going to have a real light show, a real facade. Get out the popcorn when you see him descending to Earth in a cloud of UFOs, declaring that he's the Son of God.
How can a person know if they're one of the Bible says in end time many will be deceived? How can one know if one is not walking in deception? Would you ever, if you're in deception, how would you know if you are?
Well, the biggest thing to do is to pray daily that the Lord reveal the truth to you in all things. And the more you get to know him, the more you know what isn't of him. And that's the best way to learn anything is just the more you get to know him, that it's so easy to recognize what isn't of him.
Here's a question I always have. Seems like you're the person to ask this. Why is it that when there's demonic activity, poltergeist, or any other type of activity, which even the unbelieving spiritual Christians say doesn't happen. They deny the obvious, but why is it always priests that get into the exorcism? Why doesn't, say, Pentecostals or somebody else or Baptists or somebody, why don't they do the...
Well, first of all, the Baptists don't acknowledge it. I grew up Baptist for 30 years. And a lot of these Protestant denominations, besides Pentecostals, just don't even address the issue. They don't address the fact that a believer can be demonized or be under demonic oppression.
Well,
they ignore the whole issue.
Well, what do they do with Mark 9:16?
Well, whatever they do with half the Bible, ignore it if they don't like it.
Well, if you have an NIV, there's a line, about a 1-inch line right there at Mark 9 and 9, I think it starts there, and it says the verses underneath this line are in doubt. And
well, there's parts of Mark that they believe were added in.
Yeah.
And taken out. There's translation problems all over the KJV.
Yeah.
And as well as I do, a lot of the churches just ignore the whole issue. The Pentecostals will address it. The Pentecostals